September the 10th, 2025 is likely to be one of those days that goes down in history, and it will be remembered by where were you when you heard that Charlie Kirk had been assassinated? Well, I remember exactly where I was. I was having lunch with my middle son and my wife in Norman, Oklahoma at a very nice restaurant when the news broke, and we were just sucker punched. Like somebody had punched us in the gut. All three of us had the same reaction. At first, we were in denial. Well, he'll surely be okay, just like Trump was grazed in Butler, Pennsylvania. The first instinct was to pray and hope that he would be okay. And it was not very long after that that we found and heard the tragic news that Charlie Kirk had indeed died. It was sad, and it's still sad. What is equally sad is the unmitigated hate and mockery that has followed his death by certain lunatics on the far left. And Charlie's death really brought these people to life. We knew they were there, but I don't think we knew just how vile and bad they were. We suspected it. Now we have proof positive. They talk about hate. They claim that Charlie Kirk engaged in hate speech. Help me understand, where is this coming from? Was it his love of country, his respect for the flag, his belief in God, his belief in family, his belief in free speech, his exercise of free speech, his mobilization of tens of thousands of college-age people coast to coast, bringing them into the political system as voters and as electors? Is that how we should define hate? I don't think so. But if you want to look at hate, just watch this series of clips that we've assembled for you.
Charlie was someone who once said, guns save lives, after a school shooting. Charlie was someone who was willing to debate and downplay the death of George Floyd, downplay slavery and what Black people have gone through in this country. There are a lot of people who are out there talking about him just wanting to have a civil debate.
Complete rewriting of history.
What do you say to people who are saying the Democrats need to lower the temperatures?
Oh, please. Right. Why don't you start with the President of the United States, right? And every ugly meme he has posted and every ugly word.
I think there are people who are fomenting it in this country. I think the president's rhetoric often foments it. We've seen the January 6th rioters who clearly, have tripped a new era of political violence.
Not everyone took to his words or his rhetoric. At times they were offensive to specific communities. But with that said, this is not the time to focus on that. We are focused on this tragedy.
He's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech. Hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions.
These people are out of their minds. I don't have the words, and I'm sure you our listeners feel the same. It is so disgusting that they would abuse and disrespect someone like Charlie Kirk, who was savagely murdered for no apparent reason. My wife says that he was assassinated because he was having too large of an impact, and that the liberal lefts felt that they had to get in his way. We'll talk about that some more in a moment. But fortunately, there has been a lot of pushback towards these hateful, mean-spirited people. In fact, just watch some of these clips.
For my job. I was just fired from 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 my job. Now I have nothing but this. I have nothing but this website. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore.
I just got fired. And honestly, when they told me, I was like a little like, eh. But then after, I was like, F this.
What the f are you supposed to do when you get fired? You just take it? You just take it like a man?
No, you don't take it. You look at your behavior and try and figure out, how did you contribute to your getting fired? These people made just devastatingly over the top disparaging words about someone who had just been murdered in a country where we celebrate free speech. So let the accountability continue. Here's another clip that just happened this past week with a student on a Texas university. For those of you on the radio that don't see our live stream, this is a young man on a college campus emulating Charlie Kirk after he had been shot. It is disgusting. It is inexcusable. You know, when George Floyd did die, people on the right did not celebrate his death. They did not blame him for his death. There were things that contributed to his death, like a cocktail of illegal drugs that were in his system. I think that's fair to point out. But there was no mockery. There was no disrespectfulness shown towards him. This is not how we bring a country together. Now, here's Governor Abbott in response to that individual.
Texas State University facing new pressure from Governor Greg Abbott to expel a student over a video on social media showing someone making light of Charlie Kirk's death during a memorial for him on campus. The governor reposted the video, saying this conduct is not accepted at our schools. Expel this student immediately. In a statement, Texas State University President Kelly Danfus called the video disturbing, writing, quote, "If this individual is found to be affiliated with Texas State, appropriate action will be taken. Let me be clear, expressions that glorify violence or murder have no place on our campuses."
In my view, these people are just pure out and out lunatics. They are insensitive and they're just not mentally stable, as I think is self-evident from the first young lady who had lost her job, rightfully so. Another person lost their job who worked at Office Depot. Someone came into Office Depot to get a poster printed with Charlie Kirk's picture and the dates of his life. She said that they would not print the picture because it was political propaganda. Let that sink in. Well, after there was an outcry of outrage, she was fired. Thank goodness. Good riddance. There has been other consequences of this, not all bad. Turning Point USA, which had roughly 1 million members, has mushroomed overnight to more than 12 million donors worldwide. There have been protests in support of Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA all over the world, including this past week in Great Britain, where an estimated 1 million people took to the streets chanting, "Charlie, Charlie." We saw that played out in this country, where 7 or 8 NFL football teams had moments of silence and an opportunity for people to show their support and grieve collectively for Charlie Kirk. There are also applications for 36,000 new Turning Point chapters across colleges, universities, and high schools all across the nation. I don't think this was God's plan by any means, although we are acquainted with the expression that the good die young. Maybe God wanted Charlie sitting next to him rather than being on earth. Maybe he felt that Charlie had fulfilled his purpose in life. I don't really believe that. I believe that God is grieving with us for what happened to Charlie. I do believe that Charlie is now in heaven as his reward for having lived a good life, having lived as a role model for tens of thousands of young people. But I do think that God is helping us make the most of this horrible situation by bringing people 12 million strong to support Turning Point and applications for 36,000 new chapters. This is the way we push back. This is the way we appropriately fight. 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 And we will continue to do so. Now, Emerald Robinson, who is a national news correspondent, she was formerly a correspondent on Newsmax and is now on Mike Lindell television, wrote a very compelling Substack this week, raising significant questions about the shooting. Well, I interviewed Emerald, and we're going to bring you that interview a little later in the program. I think you're really going to want to stick around and listen to it. There are a lot of questions about what happened in Utah on that college campus on September the 10th. There was one crazy guy that has shown up in a lot of different places, a lot of protest. And as soon as the shots rang out, or the shot, he yelled, "Shoot me, shoot me, shoot me." People who have watched that have labeled him a decoy. He clearly got police officers and law enforcement focused on him rather than the shooter. What would motivate him to do that? Why? And those words, how strange. There are a lot of questions about how the gun got up on the roof. There are a lot of questions about how the gun got off the roof and why it showed up in the middle of the woods. As Emerald Robinson pointed out, we have not been given any information about the bullet. Does the FBI have it? Has it been retrieved? Does it match the gun? And then in the moments immediately after Charlie's assassination, the evidence was not tampered with. It was actually destroyed. A camera that was positioned in the tent that showed clearly what happened was immediately removed. The tent was deconstructed, and now new construction has started to take place at the crime scene. These are very irregular circumstances, and Emerald Robinson helps break it all down and has some very compelling observations and facts surrounding it. Did Tyler Robinson, no relation to Emerald, obviously, did he act alone? Was he part of a network of people? Who provided the money? The money for the gun, for the getaway, for the ancillary things that went into this? These are all serious questions that need to be answered. I would also like to know, what do you think? What do you think about the despicable hate speech that followed Charlie's assassination? Should the people be held accountable? Is it fair that they were fired in the aftermath of making these horrible, disrespectful statements about someone savagely murdered? What do you think? I'd like to know your opinion. And what do you think about Elizabeth Warren's comments and Governor Pritzker's comments? Send them to me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. I promise to read your email, and I will respond to each and every one of you. In summary, I'm just going to say that if we cannot, as a nation, as a one giant community, agree on the sanctity of life and condemn violence at any and every turn, we are in a pile of trouble. And I think that we are at a point right now, an inflection point, if you will, where people have either got to come together and resolve that we cannot engage in violence, or else there's going to be hell to pay. And I worry about the future of our country right now on that very thing. Can we agree? Can we get past this and somehow find some peace and harmony among us? It's way overdue. And I think President Trump needs to be the person to start that conversation and to lead us in that direction. But this is a sad day in America, and it is the establishment of a new low bar that if you have political beliefs, religious beliefs, beliefs about the family, that you cannot say those things without fear of being the subject of violence. That cannot occur. It does not matter your political affiliation, your race, your gender. We have to be able, as a organized, lawful society, to first at least agree on the sanctity of life. And that is an undercurrent that is part of this conversation that is really scary. A lot of these bad actors that are uttering these despicable comments and mocking the dead reflect no respect for human life or dignity. And that's got to stop. So today, I am beginning what I hope will be a movement. I hope it will become an idea that can be advanced. I hope you will help me advance it. I don't think any man or woman in this country should be allowed to attend college on a publicly funded scholarship unless they agree to serve in the armed forces. All these people who are running around shouting and demonstrating and demeaning the life and work of Charlie Kirk, I think would look at it very differently if they had some self-discipline, if they had had an opportunity to reflect on their own values and character. And that's what the service will do for you. Now, I did not serve in the armed forces. I wish that I had. My brother did, and he did so with distinction. Zell Miller told me, he was the former governor and United States senator from the great state of Georgia. He told me over lunch one day that the Marines literally saved his life, that he was on a very bad course and a bad track. So, ladies and gentlemen, I favor reinstituting the draft in the United States. I think every fit man or woman between the ages of 18 and 22 should have to serve in our military for at least a year or two, just like they do in Russia and many other nations in the world. It's time. And I don't know how to touch these young people, who many of whom do not have a role model, many of whom don't know how to find the church, many of whom lack self-discipline. Clearly, they lacked respect. I don't know how to get to them, except perhaps through a mandatory draft. It's the best strategy that I've been able to come up with. Tell me what you think. Write me, johngordontruth@gmail.com. Let me know what you think. I personally believe that it would have the beneficial effect of instilling patriotism, and we know that Paris Island would be a good place for some of these people to get a real dose of reality. I think it's well overdue, and I think that that would be a great strategy. And just say, hey, you want a college education? You want a free ride to get a trade? No problem. Just report to your nearest enlistment office and we will certainly help you make a good life for yourself, just as soon as you help make this country great. And that's the truth. And I'm John Gordon. Thanks for joining us today. Stay tuned now for a great program, including the great Emerald Robinson. And we're going to break down Charlie Kirk's death and assassination and who may have played a role in it, in addition to Tyler Robinson, as well as breaking down the events of that tragic day.